Now, let's see how we can add multi-language support in our application so the users can change our application language. So let's go to our project. In our project, I already created this language folder in my root directory, and in here already created that translations as a JSON to save some time. I have English translations, Farsi, Hindi, Pashto, and Turkish translations in my application. Now, the first thing that I will do is I will go to vite.config.js, and in here I will create a alias for my language folder to import them easily. So after the plugins array, in here I will type resolve. Then inside the resolve object I will type alias, and inside alias I will define the alias. So add lang, then slash lang. That's it. Then after that we have to install a package. So let's go to our Google, and in here we have to type React I18 next. Then we have to click the first link, this one link, click this one, then click on the quick installation and copy this code. So let's copy this and in our terminal paste it, then press enter. So the back package have been installed. Now let's go back to the documentation and scroll down. Now it says that we have to create this i18.js file in our project. So let's copy the name and let's go to resources, JS, and in here let's create a new file with the same name that we copied. Then inside here let's paste all these codes. So let's copy and paste it here. Now after that we have to import all our languages from our lang folder. So let's type here import en from at lang slash en.json. Now we have to do same for all these languages. So let's import all of them. Okay, so we have added all our languages in here. We have imported them. Now we don't need this resource. So let's delete this. Then in the resource, we will create an object and we will add all our languages. So let's create our object, and in here for en we have to type translation en. Now we have to do exactly same thing for all of them. So let's copy this and paste. Done. So we are done with i18.js file. Now we have to import this in our app.jsx. So let's import that. In here, let's type import dot i18. That's it. We don't have to change anything else inside our app.jsx. Just we have to import this. Now we can use i18 and translate our text. So if I go to pages and students, then index.jsx, to use that, we have to first of all import translations. So use translation from React I18. Then let's create our variable. So let's type const t and I18n and set it to use translation. Now we can translate our text. So let's warp all these text in and a T. So let's work all of them. Now we have to do exactly the same thing for all the text inside our student and teachers. So let's do it. Okay. So I work all the text inside my teachers and also inside my students with a T. Now, if I go to my project in here right now, it's showing English. But if I come to i18.js and change language to something else, for example, Farsi, let's save this. And if I go now, all my pages, those texts that I change, work them with a T, they all change to Farsi. Same if I click to teachers, it changed to Farsi. And if I change it to Hindi, and let's go back, let's refresh. Now it changed to Hindi. Same, we can change this to another language, for example, TR Turkish. Let's refresh. Now it's changed to Turkish. So now we need a method to change this dynamically with a select option or with a function. We don't have to change it manually each time. The user should be able to change it from somewhere from our application. So for that, so let's create a new component in here and call this language switcher .jsx, and let's import React from React, then import use translation from 18, and finally let's import the router also. So router from Inertia React, then we have to list our languages. So let's create icons languages in here. uh, then inside here let's create our the list of our languages. So I will add the languages code and label. So I did for all of them. And after this, we have to type export default function and our component name, which is language switcher. Then inside this function, let's call our I18 and T for the translation and set it to use translation. Now let's return a select option so the users can change the languages. So let's return and create a div label, give them a label of language. Then let's create our select option. So let's type here select, and for the option we are going to map through our languages and display them in here. So let's type languages dot map, and in here we will create an arrow function. So let's call our languages as a lang, then let's call our options. So for option we will set the key to lang dot code, and for value also we are going to use lang dot code, and for the text we are going to use lang dot label. So this is ready. Let's save this and call this one inside our main dashboard. So let's go to our layouts and dashboard. I'm going to display this in the header. So I'm going to add this in my header. So let's first of all import our language switcher. So import language switcher from our component, and in here let's call that. So let's call our language switcher. Now let's save everything. Let's go to the browser. Now our language switcher is here. we can change it. But when we change it, nothing, the language is not getting changed. So we have to call a function on change of our select option. So let's go and create that function. So let's go to our project, back to the language switcher, and in here let's create a variable with the name of change language and set it to arrow function with the e as a parameter, and inside this we will create a variable with the name of selected language or line and set it to e dot target dot value. Then we will call our I18n dot change language, and in here we will pass our selected lang. Now let's save this and let's call change languages to in our select option. So in here let's call on change and call our change language, and also let's give him a value of I18 dot language. So now let's save everything. Let's go back, and in here let's change language to Farsi. Now the language has been changed. If I change it to Hindi, it's changed. But there is one problem. Whenever I refresh the page, it will reset back to the original language, which is English. So even if I change it to Hindi, now it's changed. And if I refresh, it's back to English. So for that, we have to save our language to the local storage and fetch it in here. So after that, we set the language to I18. In here, let's set the selected language to the local storage. So we will type local storage dot set item and give it a key of lang. Then we will pass our selected language. So selected language. Now, now we have to fetch this inside our i18.js. So instead of writing en by default, we will type local storage dot get item and give it, set the name lang, and let's here give them a default value if it's not available or if it's not found. So in that case we will say use en as a default get item. Now let's save everything. Let's go back. Okay. So now it's Pashto. Now let's change it to Farsi. Let's refresh. Still Farsi. Now let's change it to English. Refresh. Still English. Same we can see with the Hindi as well. So let's refresh. Yeah, it's Hindi. If I go to another page, it's still Hindi. Now, still we have one more problem to solve, which is the data that we receive from our backend. This data is not changing. We are getting it as it is. So we want to get the translation of this. For example, if I go to my students controller, so let's go to our app, HTTP controller and student controller. Let's change them to name and this one to last name. If I come to browser, I refresh, I get them as it is. So I want to translate the data that I get from the server to translate that also. So for that, let's go to our project. The first thing that I need to do is to create a middleware. So in the terminal, let's type, let's make it up here. Let's PHP artisan make middleware and give it a name of set locally middleware. Enter. Now our middleware is set. Let's go and in the handle method of our middleware in here we will create a variable with the name of locally and set it to request query and lang. So it means that we have to send the language in our query parameter or as a query string. If this is not available, can also check the session. So we can type session, check for locally. Otherwise, so let's set the default. So we will set the default to app.locally. So it should take the default system language. So if we send a language, then we have to set it to our application locally. So we will call app colon set locally and we will pass that local variable. Then we can set it to the session also if you want. So by just typing session and inside here you can type the key and the value. That's it. Now we have to register this locally as a global middleware. So we have to go to our Bootstrap app and in here we have to append it. So in here let's type middleware append and in here let's open the array. Let's type our middleware name set locally middleware class. Now, let's scroll down and let's go to our sidebar component and in all the places that we send our links, we have to pass our language code as well. So let's fetch our language code first of all from the local storage. So let's create a language variable and set it to local storage dot get item and let's get the language. If it's not found, let's set the default value to English. Now, let's pass it here. Let's select both of them and change this to like this and pass it as a query string. So let's call lang is equal to $lang. Let's save. Okay, let's add them in here as well. First of all, let's change these. Lang is equal to $lang. Okay, our sidebar is ready. Now let's save everything. Let's go to our project. Now we have name here and let's select that teacher. Now let's select the student again. Now we have our data in that translated form. So if I change it to Hindi, so the data has not changed. But if I click this one more time, the data has changed. And if I click refresh, we got our translated text. So let's fix this problem as well because when I change it, and everything changed, but our data does not change. So we have to fix this one also in our language switcher. So let's go here. And after this, we have to type router dot get window dot location dot path name and set it to lang selected language. Then in the third parameter, we will type replace and set it to true. Then preserve scroll, set this one to true as well. And finally, preserve state and set this one to true as well. So let's save everything now. Let's go back. So let's refresh. Okay, we have our data in Persian. So first of all, let's change it to Farsi. Now, when I change it to Farsi, my data which comes from the server, this also changed and everything also. So if I change it to Pashto, it changed. Now, if I change it to Turkish, change all of them. And if I go to another page, come back, still we have our translated data. So refresh as well. Now we have our data English. Again, we have our data. So this is it. One last thing, if you want, you can also share the locally in your handle inertia request middleware. This is optional. If you want, you can just type the locally key and get the app and get locally. That's it. If you want to share it in all pages, you can do it also from your handle inertia request middleware.